The Prepper Podcast, episode 25.
They've got to know whether or not their president's a crook.
The American people would never vote for socialism. He said, under the name of liberalism, the American people will adopt every fragment of the socialist program.
Podcast is an up-to-date survival podcast based on military, wilderness, and modern-day survival, and may be found at theprepperpodcast.com. I am Ken Jensen, and this is the podcast about everything survival. My goal is to teach you strategies on self-reliance and develop survival skills and critical thinking in everyone, resulting in a more resilient and more enjoyable life. This is episode 25, and today I think we're going to discuss the gardening aspects such as soil, fertility, square foot gardening, companion planting, and even a little bit on permaculture and what it has to do with gardening. The show notes for today may be found at theprepperpodcast.com/025. Now for the housekeeping. I told you guys that I made an update to my consulting calendar, that it is available, and that my consulting is $150 per hour on these sessions. There are instructions on my calendar. You can find my calendar at theprepperpodcast.com/calendar to set up a meeting with me if you would like some one-on-one instructional time. Now, if you are a listener to this show for the next 2 months, if you mention episode 025, then I will give you 33% off on the one-on-one consulting, which that would bring it down to about $100 an hour. Now, I still understand that that's a lot of money, but you have to understand the reason why I priced it at $150 is because my time is very valuable to me. I don't want to build a business where I have to trade my time for money, but I do want to make myself available to people. So, I'm sorry if the price was still a little too steep for you guys, but if in the next couple months you decide that you want to book something, then mention episode 025, and I will go ahead and give you a discount, and it will be $100 per hour. But today's date, let's see, hold on one second. Let me look at the date. Today's date, when this is aired, will be April 11th. So 2 months for the next 2 months after April 11th, if you mention episode 025, you can get 33% off on one-on-one time with me. And I will make sure that I'm available whenever we set up the meeting. I can do it either on the phone, I can do it on Skype, and I can do it in another video conferencing. I have my own room online where I can do private video conferencing with people beyond Skype. There are different ways for me to do this stuff. So I can make myself available through many different means. And if you mention that episode, it's going to be $100, not $150. But after the 2 months, it's going to be $150 again. All right? So remember, at the end of last week's podcast, I told you to give me an iTunes review. I want to reiterate that. Please go to iTunes. You go to theprepperpodcast.com /iTunes. It will take you to my iTunes page, and you can leave a comment there and leave a review there. Please do both. What that does is it makes it where other people find me a lot better, and I can teach them and make them as resilient and awesome as we are. All right. Let's see. The budget. Once again, the budget is almost done. Beta testers, make sure that you follow this budget when I give it to you. I'm also going to be giving probably about 15 to 20% off to the listeners of this podcast. I will come up with something for you guys. Now, if it seems that I'm a little bit off, it's because I am on the back end of my little miniature podcast marathon, because I am actually currently working right now. I'm not podcasting. If you're listening to me right now, I am not podcasting. I am working 12-hour days, 6 to 7 days a week, because we shut everything down where I work and we do maintenance on it all. We're all dirty, we're all oily, we're all grimy, and we're all working very, very hard. But I did this episode almost 2 weeks in advance so that I knew that you guys would get the content. So, yeah, you're welcome. So let's get to the discussion. We're going to talk about gardening. First, I'm going to talk about why you should garden. Let's consider, let's say, just if you're not driving, okay? If you're not driving, close your eyes, and we're going to try to use our brains a little bit here. Let's just close our eyes and think about this. If you're not driving, if you close your eyes and you're driving and you go off the road, and you know what? You kind of did it to yourself, so I'm sorry that I lost you, but don't close your eyes if you're driving, okay? We have a population of over 315 million people in the United States. We have an economic collapse scenario. People are running in the streets. There's all kinds of rioting happening. And we're not talking about all the rioting right now. What we are talking about is the fact that the food industry only has a supply of food for about 2 to 3 days to sustain everybody. After that, it's all gone, guys. There will be a lot of hunting. And this will be hunting of every type of animal that you can think of that people need to eat and survive. Now, people have nearly extincted many, many species. All right? Many species have almost been extincted because of people who are hunting just for money or something like that. This isn't food. The reason why these animals went almost extinct, and some of them actually have gone extinct, but it's not for food. It's just for financial gain. How much worse do you think it would be in an economic collapse scenario where everybody has to go hunting for food? Now, fortunately, I think that the government is going to do what they do best and try to give a bunch of handouts to people. So, some of the people will not hunt. They'll just stand in line for things. But I promise you, there will be a lot more people hunting, and there will be a lot fewer animals available for you to hunt. Even if you're a good hunter, there are going to be a lot of problems with finding food every day. So before this happens, we need to learn to garden and to farm. We need to be able to farm our own animals. We need to be able to raise a garden. And there are other things that I'll talk about here in a little bit, and why I think that we should be doing things this way instead of just stocking up a little bit of food. Now, here's the thing. I told you guys about my little budget thing, and I've told you guys how it is to get you 1 year prepared, but this is a self-reliance type of preparation. which I believe is the first step. But you should also be gardening and stuff because that is going to give you self-sufficiency. Okay, there's a difference between self-reliance and self-sufficiency. Okay, self-reliance is measured in days. I am 30 days self-reliant, which means I can last 30 days with providing for myself. I am 15% self-sufficient, which means that the food that I have coming in, 15% of that I created myself. You get what I'm saying? So self-reliance and self-sufficiency is not the same. What the gardening and farming allow you to do is become more self-sufficient instead of self-reliant. So as you're working on the self-reliance aspect in my survival goals, then you also should be working on gardening and stuff like that on your own so that you can develop ways, the best ways and the best plants for your method and for your yard or for your land. And you also will be you'll be able to can all that and stuff like that. So it's very important that you know how to do all this stuff in case something actually happens, because if you're 1 year self-reliant and then you develop 50% self-sufficiency, well then now you're going to go for at a minimum 2 years because you can generate food and you have food stocked up. So you are now actually going to last 2 years, even though you're 1 year self-reliant and 50% self-sufficient. So we need to learn to farm before this economic collapse scenario is going to happen. You'll be glad at that time that you turned to farming. Okay, so your soil. We destroy all the soil today with all the chemicals and Roundup that's being put on it, with the tilling that's happening. We destroy the soil. So with tilling, I told you guys last week that I am a no-till person, and I stick to that because tilling, it destroys the natural layers that occur in the soil. You kill fungal layers, you kill insects, and all that. Yeah, your land's going to be very fertile every single time you till. And the reason for that is because you're killing everything, and all the insects and stuff that's dying, all the plants that die and stuff like that as a result of tilling goes into the ground, provides fertility for the plants that you plant in a tilled area. But what else that does is it creates a spot for weeds to come in, because you're actually depleting it of more nutrients by doing it that way. So now weeds have to come in. They are pioneering species. They come in, their nature's way of repairing the soil. And then you till to get rid of the weeds again. But the fact of the matter is you're just destroying your soil even more, and the weeds have to come in, pioneer, to pull nutrients from deep in the ground, pull it up, and make it available for plants the next time around. Now, it sounds like this might work a little bit, but this is not a sustainable practice. So tilling is a no-no. I am a no-till guy. Plants, all different types of plants have roots at different depths. Your tomato plant does not have a taproot that's going to go as deep as an oak tree. Okay, plants have roots at the depth. The depth of the roots go down to the soil layer that they thrive at. Okay? So the depth that these plants thrive at is based on the soil layer, and the plant will drive its roots to that point. Typically, the plant will drive its roots to that point because it knows, it has the innate knowledge that it will need to pull nutrients from that location. If you till up the layers, now you have destroyed the plant's abilities to drive to the layer that it works best on. All right? Like last week, we kind of talked about housekeeping and the forest soil. In my example of soil, the forest soil is it's typically like 14 inches of leaves as mulch on the ground. And these leaves, not only are they acting as like mulch to hold water in, but they're also constantly breaking down. They keep weeds out, they hold water in, and they're constantly breaking down. This is going to result in an organic, rich humus, or humus is like a very rich dirt. It's a nutrient dense black, almost black dirt from all the nutrients in it, and you're going to see like that little fungal layer that we talked about last week in it. Okay, I actually have a video on this as well on YouTube. If you look up humus on YouTube, or it should be something like humus or forest soil or forest humus, something like that on YouTube. I have a video on that, and I think that I actually have that video in the show notes. I'll try to have that video in the show notes, and I'm sorry if I forget to do it. Like I said, I'm doing this 2 weeks in advance. So we recreate this. We can recreate this process. All right, we can recreate the process of forest soil, and we can do it with something that's a little less natural, I guess you could say. We use we can do it by taking this layer of newspaper or cardboard. I prefer cardboard, and make the layer 2 to 3, maybe even 4 inches deep. And you're just going to have a lot of it stacked on top of each other until it's really thick. And you do this like a year in advance, or at least the fall, because wintertime is when the most breakdown happens. So you cover this area with the newspaper, cardboard, or whatever. It's going to keep weeds out, and through the next spring, it's probably going to keep most of the weeds from regrowing. And it's also breaking down during the wintertime, so it's going to recreate this process of humus. Now, you don't want colored newspapers, okay? If it's got the colored pictures and stuff on it, you don't want that. You want the old brownish, grayish newspaper with the black and white print. That's the kind of newspaper you want. You don't want this glossy finish, okay? That's bad. But the regular newspaper is actually pretty good. It will break down pretty well, and you will have a very rich area next year. All right, so on top of the newspaper and stuff, we're going to put 4 inches of mulch. All right, the mulch, we've already talked about this time and time again, where it's going to help retain water because the sun can't evaporate all of it, and it's going to help keep weeds out. What's really cool about the mulch is a lot of times when weeds actually do set in the mulch, it'll drive its taproot down, but the fact that it's like 3 to 4 inches above the ground, that taproot's probably not going to get into the ground very well, and that will make it where you can just walk over there and pull it right up, and it's almost no work. So you want that 4 inches of mulch on top of the newspaper. All right, like I said, you want to do this late fall, early winter at least, maybe even a little bit before that, because it's going to break down the most during the wintertime. And you're going to water this area every single day, okay? You don't have all the tree cover and stuff like that, so you're going to lose a lot more moisture. You have to keep this moist during the fall and winter so that it can break down better. If you don't keep it moist, it will not break down properly. All right, now let's talk about square foot gardening. I know that all this stuff is seemingly unrelated. I could probably make an episode with each one, so we'll just consider this an intro to gardening. Square foot gardening, I have a couple blog posts on square foot gardening, and I have the links in the show notes. It's a very intensive management system where that you can pack a lot of plants in a very small area. It's a very high density companion planting system. Okay, what most people essentially do is they create a 4x4 raised bed, with like 2x4s or something like that, and they use a lattice to mark 1 foot squares, so 1 foot by 1 foot squares. So you're going to have 16 squares in a 4x4 raised bed, and you're going to plant a whole bunch of one type of plant in each of these 1 foot sections. and you're going to put companion plants in the sections beside it. So you're going to start in one location, and you're going to move to the next location and plant the companion stuff around it. All right. And what that is a symbiotic relationship. Okay. We'll get into that a little bit more here in a minute. But I have some informational guides and ways to get started that that I have in the show notes. So go ahead and go over to the show notes. That's theprepperpodcast.com/025. Go over to the show notes, and there's a lot of links in today's show notes, okay? A lot of links. And there's this one guide that it's really not extremely pleasant on the eyes, okay? It's a poor website, the way it's developed or whatever, but it actually has a lot of really good information on it, and I gave you a link to that as well. And I actually labeled the link Non-Pleasing Informational Guide. All right. So that's all I'm going to talk about. Square foot gardening. It's just very intense, high-density companion planting. I don't agree with planting things quite as dense as it says to do it. As a matter of fact, last year, my square foot gardening, and it was more because of my timing, because I worked every year. We do this stinking outage, and it messes up my gardening time. So, help me build this business, people. But I didn't get started because of all the stuff that was going on last year. I didn't even get started until sometime, I think, April or May. And we still got quite a bit of production out of my hugel beds. It was like a hybrid between a hugel bed and a square foot garden bed. And we got a ton of production out of it. It was just very weedy and stuff like that because I didn't have time to set everything up like I needed to. So, that was pretty bad. So for me, the square foot gardening is a little too high density. It's a little too intensive in the management. So I'm going to go with the polyculture, which a polyculture we'll talk about. It has a lot to do with companion planting, but I'm going to do a polyculture just like you would in square foot gardening. It's just going to be in rows, but it's going to be a bunch of companion plants. Speaking of companion plants, let's move on to companion plants and vegetables. All right. Once again, I have a link in here. If I seem to be rambling on, remember, this is like my second podcast in a row for you guys. So I have a link in this as well. And we'll talk about the benefits of the companion vegetables. The benefits of companion planting is it's systematic and you have a symbiotic relationship in the plants. The soil, the roots come into the soil. The roots have a relationship. If you think like beans or something, like any legume species, you put it down beside something that requires a lot of nitrogen, then you're going, the legumes, they have a lot of little nodules and stuff like that on the roots, and those are going to release nitrogen, and those nitrogen nodules are going to release that to the nitrogen requiring the plant that requires a lot of nitrogen. So that's just one symbiotic relationship between plants, and that's in the soil. Another way that you can take advantage of a relationship between the plants is pests. There are some plants that will attract predator species of insects. And these predators, they prey on a lot of the insects that are going to harm your other plants and vegetables. So, if you've got a vegetable and you've got something that, like vine borers or something like that, you can plant a companion plant beside it that actually deters these insects, and it can bring a predator insect that will kill that insect that would destroy your other plants anyways. So it'll bring in those healthy insects and predators, and it will get rid of the pests. so to speak. Along with the healthy insects, you can plant, flowers that will bring in a lot of bees and things of that nature that are going to help pollinate all of your plants. And we all know that when you pollinate your plants, they produce better for you. So there you go. That is a little bit on how the companion plants can benefit you. Even though I'm rambling on a little bit today, I'm getting through this stuff pretty quick. It's pretty awesome because I'm almost to the end of the show. All right. So we're done with the companion planting. Now let's talk about permaculture. What is permaculture? It stands for permanent culture. All right. It is exactly what it sounds like. And I've got a link there as well. Permaculture includes swells and hugelkultur and stuff like that. Now, let's think about Cuba. Cuba, a while back, had a big crisis. They had a food crisis, and the thing about it is the way Cuba is and the hard workers that are there, they actually fared better than we will ever if we go into our food crisis that we know is going to happen eventually. But Cuba, it turned toward permaculture. Maybe not 100%, but it was pretty much pure permaculture because they realized that the way they were doing things was unsustainable, and that's what caused the food shortage. So they went to permaculture, and they started doing all these, backyard gardening things, and just they went and did a lot of permaculture on the small scale, and that helped the food shortage a lot. It helped it a lot. So just remember, Cuba almost went under, and permaculture saved them. So now if you go there, you'll realize in Cuba that the majority of the planting and stuff like that happens in Cuba, you'll look and you'll realize that a lot of it is permaculture systems that's keeping it up and running. So remember that, and that's a little history so that you know that how to do things and that it's not going to repeat itself, right? So we can build these systems into our bug out locations, okay? So that's what I was talking about. The link that I have is a blog post that I did on bug out location development ideas, but you can build swells and hugelkultur beds and stuff like that into your bug out locations. You can make these big mounds, these big hugelkultur mounds. You can make those like a perimeter fence around your property, so it's more difficult for people to get by. You can make an opening, but you can make that opening kind of small and then put another hugelkultur mound behind that opening that's wider than the opening, so it doesn't look like it goes anywhere. It just looks like it goes into another big pile of dirt or another bunch of plants and stuff like that. You can actually, on one side of the mound, you can do like all kinds of thorny vines and stuff like that, and then on the other side you can plant all of your food crops and stuff like that. So you can actually come up with ways to develop hugelkultur and permaculture into your property. You can use swales. You can use swales to move water, to harvest water. You can use ponds. There are things that you can do on your property that's going to make it a very resilient property. And everything that you're going to do to that property to make it the perfect property is the answer to that is going to be permaculture. I would say to go to jefflawton.com. That's someone who is really good at permaculture, who is one of the main teachers right now in permaculture, and it's GEOFFLAWTON. Okay, jefflawton.com, and watch some of his videos, and you'll see the kind of resilient systems that he creates. He may sound all hippie-ish and stuff like that. He may seem like a hippie. First off, let me tell you that I have nothing against hippies. A lot of them are pretty cool people. They just got some weird things about them too, okay? So if you are listening to me and you are a hippie, believe me, I have a lot of hippie friends until I say something stupid and conservative that really makes them mad. But I keep a lot of friends that are in that community, and I think that they bring a lot of things from their community that are beneficial. Now, with that being said, Jeff Lawton, you may think that he comes from that community, but this guy, he has guns and everything else. So even if he sounds a little bit that way, he's not. He's a really cool guy. I didn't really need to, append all that with more information, but I just want you guys to realize, and I may have said it even wrong now, and I probably have a lot of people that are angry with me, but I just wanted to make you guys aware that I do not have anything against anybody in this country, okay? Unless you are the type of person that is mooching off of the systems in the government, not using it to help yourselves, but you're mooching off the system and it's coming from my tax dollars, then I don't like you. That's the person I don't like, okay? Because I'm trying to teach everybody else to be resilient and to work for themselves and, all this self-sufficiency stuff, and you're sucking the money out of their pocket that they could be using to be prepared again. And you know what? The people that are sucking on the teat of the system, those people are the reason why the system's failing. For one, it's a horribly set up system, but the fact of the matter is we have so many people, getting things from government programs that they are ruining our system. So I went in on a tangent. Go to jefflawton.com. He's a very intelligent person. He's a very cool guy. And go ahead. He doesn't send out. You'll have to sign up. You'll have to use an email or something like that to sign up for his stuff. But I am signed up for his stuff. And the only time that he ever sends me an email is when he has a new video out or when he has a permaculture class coming out. All right, that's the only times I ever get emails. He gives free videos all year round, and maybe once or twice a year, he sends me an email that says, hey, I got my next permaculture class out. This guy gives so much awesome content. I think you guys need to watch him. He's a really cool guy. All right, that being said, that's the end of my show. I hope that you guys learned enough about the soil and gardening, square foot gardening, the companion plants and stuff like that to do more research and get out there and get it done. And I hope that you learned enough about permaculture to be interested in it so you could go to Jeff Lawton's site and check that out, okay? So, like I said, that's the end of the show. And hopefully next week I'll come back fresh and I'll come back. Hopefully, I'll come back fresh. I may come back really, really tired because of the couple weeks I've had. But that being said, hopefully, I'll come back fresh and I'll have some more awesome content for you guys. I appreciate every one of you that listen to me. This is Ken.